Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Chalmley. This is another church in Worcestershire. This is the Church of St James, Hartlebury. Hartlebury is notable because until very recently, Hartlebury Castle, the local big house, was the residence of the Bishop of Worcester. As a result, Hartlebury Parish Church was the Bishop's parish church. Bishops, on the whole, don't attend their cathedral services because, well, they have visitation rights to the cathedral, but it's not actually their parish church. It's the dean's church. Complicated. But what you do have is a situation where the bishop would have a country house, and again, until the middle part of the 19th century, it's very normal for bishops to live not at their palaces near the cathedral, but in a country house somewhere else in the diocese. And Hartlebury Castle is the bishop's country house. And so he needs a suitable church. Now, the church at Hartlebury, quite frankly, was neglected for a very long time. In the 14th century, there is a murder takes place in the church, which is then closed until the payment of a fine, basically, for someone having been wicked enough to commit murder in the church. But in 1818, enough is enough here, and they decide we're going to build a new church, or rebuild the nave anyway. Earlier on, there's been a partial restoration, but the nave then needs work, and the nave is completely rebuilt. It's rebuilt by a fascinating man, Thomas Rickman. Thomas Rickman is a Quaker accountant who is an amateur architect initially. He's interested in medieval architecture, and because he's a Quaker, he's not motivated in any sort of partisan way. He's just interested in it as an architecture. And so he's the man who develops the naming scheme that's commonly used for medieval architecture: Romanesque, the Norman style, with the rounded arches, early English, decorated and perpendicular. And as he's interested in the study of architecture, he also becomes an architect himself and starts designing churches. Even though he's a Quaker, he's quite in demand by Anglicans. And so it is that this church is designed by this Quaker accountant. He eventually becomes a full-time architect and ends up actually not as a Quaker. He leaves the Quakers and joins the Catholic Apostolic Church, which is a wonderfully bonkers organization. Sort of thing that would appeal to somebody who was into this sort of antiquarian style that Rickman was. The interesting thing with Rickman is because he's a Quaker, he's a nonconformist, he isn't interested in reproducing a medieval church. He's interested rather in using this beautiful architecture he's been studying to create the best church for what's needed. And of course, in the period, what's wanted is this building with its galleries. It's a preaching building. The seating's all been replaced since, but it still has its original galleries supported on cast iron columns. And we'll see as we go around just how Rickman has, rather than giving us a copy of a medieval church, he's given us an early 19th century church using a development, and that's the wonderful thing, it's a development of the medieval style. It's not a copy, it's not a going back to the past, it's how can we move on using this beautiful pointed style of the Middle Ages. And the chancel was restored earlier and is a somewhat different style, but this is the complete rebuild. And Rickman worked on the chancel, but here he just has build this kind of building, and that's what he does. So we'll have a look around. It's classic Rickman, beautiful structure. And so we start at the west end, and you can see here this font. Now this is an imitation Norman tub. So someone has gone, we want a Norman style font here. And then we come in to the main building. You can see here these columns. Now, because they don't need a gallery as deep as all that, the gallery is not in fact attached to the columns, it's behind the columns, as we'll see. You can see there. But these slender columns that are intended just to carry something of the weight of the roof, and this plaster vault to be absolutely loathed by later Victorians, to shame. We've got here some of the military colours. You can see these have been laid up. These are actually encased in polymer to protect them. And so, under the gallery, so we get round to the back here, around here, and you've got the under the gallery. You can see a slope there. As built, there would have been a wooden pulpit. It's been replaced with a stone one in the 1880s when there was a major refurb, call it what you will, and memorials under the gallery. Here you have one from 1802, but well, actually it's not 1802, this is a replacement for one from 1802 to supply the loss of a tombstone accidentally broken at the rebuilding of the church. And that's one of the things about rebuilding. Even if you try and carry over memorials, you may lose one or two because someone will drop one or it'll fall off the wall when you're not expecting it. You can see the windows. Windows are full length, so it's not immediately obvious from the outside of the gallery unless you notice, hang on a minute, why can I see the back of the gallery through the window? Windows are in the nave are plain glass, because of course this is a preaching church. This is a church where the focus is the pulpit, and even though it's been replaced by this big Victorian stone piece, it's still incredibly prominent. The original would have been a 3-decker, and I have seen one of Rickman's 3-deckers in Oxfordshire. And here's the chancel, which retains more old material. We turn west and look at that. Look at that. So that's, of course, modern room under the tower. That would have been the ringing chamber, and the gallery is on either side with the stairs carefully concealed at the back. You can see the doors there that lead to where the stairs are. And turn round, up into the chancel. Now, the rector here at the time of the Reformation is the chaplain to Bishop Latimer, and he is burned at Smithfield for being a Protestant. We have the organ in here. I think it's a Nicholson. They normally are around here. The vestry in there. There is a just about see-through there, the royal arms. We won't try and squeeze around the back there. It'd be bad for me. And this is, because I say this is historically the bishop's parish church, and so the bishop has his seat in the chancel. Now, most churches there's a seat for the bishop to use, but of course this is his parish church, so he has a special episcopal seat. It's not his throne, of course. That's in the cathedral at Worcester, but it is an episcopal seat. And here we have memorials of some of the bishops. There's Henry Pepys, and Henry Pepys died in 1860, died at Hartlebury Castle 1860, having become bishop here in 1841. Reverend Samuel Picart, B.D., was rector of this parish and prebendary of Hereford, and he died in 1835, age 64. A profound scholar and divine. Augustus Baker, son of the Reverend Thomas Baker. We've got here Bishop Robert James Carr, who died at Worcester 1841, age 67. So he, of course, is Pepys's predecessor. So episcopal memorials. Can I see who this is? No. That's quite a good piece of, looks like late 17th century work. You can see looking west, the contrast between this chancel, you can see there those columns are medieval. The contrast between this chancel and this enormous, very Protestant nave. And this is the side chapel. So here we have the Lord's Prayer This is a nice 18th century piece from before the rebuild. And you can see there's the gallery, how the gallery sticks out like that. It's quite common to find these east and west north and south galleries, but no west gallery. And there we have a nice, well, Victorian window, and there, flat ceiling. So as built, this would have been furnished with box pews and with open seats for the free seating. You can see there's the pulpit, and there's the eagle, who of course is firmly fixed down. And we have these nice slender cast iron columns. All the columns are as thin as possible, because the idea is that we want people to be able to see, and we want them to be able to see the pulpit. Having people see what's going on in the chancel from the aisles, well, yes, they are aisles because you've got these arches here, is a lost cause, and so they hadn't tried to do that. But rather it's all about seeing the pulpit. The building has been restored fairly recently, and it's been restored to a very high standard, as you can see. And it's this gorgeous example of Thomas Rickman's work. Rickman is one of the pioneers in terms of... Here we are, these are the gallery stairs, or this is the Orient South gallery stairs even. And they proceed upwards. You can see here this nice curving, and the balusters are of cast iron. Nice curving staircase. And here we are. And here is the South Gallery, because gallery church like this, if you can get into the gallery, do, because it means you can see things like the upper parts of the columns very nicely, and these nice, quite old-fashioned light fittings. And up here we've got the box pews, and that's the other thing you find in the galleries is box pews, because gallery pews are difficult to take out, because you're just left with a sort of empty gallery. So what they've done here is they have left box pews, and here you've got a bench. Now, I'm not sure if that bench is original or not, but that would be a free seat. A little bit awkward having a bench there because of the windows, but that is the South Gallery here, and there's the pulpit from the gallery. Another one of these lovely gallery buildings. It's classic Rickman. He has a couple of really good churches in Worcestershire. The other one is at Ombersley, which isn't very far away from here. But here he rebuilds the nave, and again you've got these lovely rose windows at the west end. It really is a tour de force. And the interesting thing, as I said with Rickman, is because he's a Quaker, because it's a Protestant architecture, you haven't got this attempt to imitate the Middle Ages, and you've got a building that... I've seen Church of Scotland buildings like this. I've seen nonconformist chapels like this. It's a Protestant Gothic. So that is the inside here at St James's, Hartlebury. And so here we are outside of St James's, Hartlebury. And again you can see this very Protestant style here with this basically west porch, this tower that rises up behind, some of which is definitely medieval. And then you've got, you'll see the aisles, which are, as we've seen inside, they're full height because they've got galleries in them. It's a building is very much, this is the parish church, but it's a parish church not of the medieval period, but of the first half of the 19th century, a building that is very much, this is not a building for masses, this is not a building for the medieval liturgy, this is a building for the Book of Common Prayer and for the preaching of the Word. So we'll have a look around the outside and again see how this building reflects its function in a way that later 19th century churches often don't, because later on what they're doing is they are imitating the Middle Ages. Here it's taking the Gothic style and evolving it into a Protestant style. So have a look around. So here we are up the hill into the church. There's quite a complicated entrance system. You can see here the doors either side, and that allows for people to come in and out of the galleries without going through the main body of the church. It's a very efficient, very sensible way of doing things. There is a ringing chamber in there, and there is a modern meeting room in the tower, and that is the time. Beautiful red sandstone, local red sandstone, and I'll actually have a look through the porch, because you then see how complicated the entrance way here is. Because as you can see, you've got this outer gate, the iron gate, and then there's a door and there's another door, and it's that inner door that leads into the church, so it helps to keep the warmth in. This here is a grave. I think it's a bishop here is buried to the glory of God and in faithful remembrance of Edward James Gibbons, barrister at law. No. And there, one of the memorials from before there. So, a little bit of use of 14th century style design there. Bins are a necessity. You have to throw things out sometimes. So, we have here the north side. This is because it's on the side of a hill, the north side is the easiest side to see. And you can see there those big windows, and it's not immediately obvious there's a gallery on the inside. The sandstone, it's red sandstone, it's always going to be a fairly soft material. Sandstone usually is, so quite eroded in places. You can see particularly the battlements, the parapet there, and there's the vestry. The use of this red paint on the doors is probably quite authentic, but that's the vestry, and you'll see as we go round the side here why it is that you can't really approach it from the south side. Yeah, vestry door there, and I think that probably is the old vicarage or rectory there. It's a nice big house with a door opening onto the churchyard, which you do kind of think, well, only one, and actually you can see there's a basement there, it's older. Sort of, although it looks 18th century, it's probably incorporates older material. And there is the chancel. It's been refaced, of course, because red sandstone is largely rubbish as building material, but it's not. It's just you have to accept it's going to erode. And you can just see here, this is why it's got to come around this side. You can see the roof line, because, and that roof line is because of that of those deep. Well, they're not that deep, but because of the galleries either side. And there's the side chapel. If it is today known as a Lady Chapel, it certainly wouldn't have been originally, because this is not a church built for a sort of Romanising style, sort of thing that would have made somebody like Pugin have a fit, of course, because for Pugin and some others the thought is, well, what we need a building that looks medieval, and Rickman, who's earlier, is saying no, we don't need a building that looks medieval, we need a building that uses the pointed style of architecture and reflects what we want to do with a church building here and now in the 19th century, not what they wanted to do with a church building back then in the 14th century, because they are different. And again, we've got these nice gallery doors which allow, say, for people to come in and out. And the under gallery space is very handy these days. You can do things with it. We have some of these graves here are episcopal. They're old bishops of Worcester have been laid to rest here in their own churchyard. Over the road is the village pub. Hartlebury Castle today is owned by a charitable trust, I believe, and it's open to the public, but not on Mondays, which is when I'm here, in any case. So there is St James's, Hartlebury, and is it not one of the most beautiful examples of a early 19th century Anglican church? I mean, could be Church of Scotland, couldn't it? It tells just how Protestant Anglicanism is at the time. So there you have it, St James's, Hartlebury, and it's just going 2. There we are, the clock struck 2. Well, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.